Good viewer, you are watching Xirtus. This is because Xirtus makes you feel good, makes you feel fulfilled. You are enjoying this. You will continue to watch Xirtus for a long time to come. You want to subscribe to Xirtus, and you will. You will like and subscribe and share. You will tell your friends. Tell your friends about Xirtus. Your friends will come to like Xirtus, much as you are liking this right now, as we speak. Thank you for subscribing to Xirtus. See, that was easy.
The following video contains content some viewers might find disturbing. The views and opinions expressed here are not facts and are nothing more than entertainment. The views and opinions are not facts and do not represent the views and opinions of Xirtus or our channel, and do not necessarily represent or reflect the views of the guests, YouTube, Google, mainstream media, society, or civilization at large, or anybody. Viewer discretion is advised.
Richard Lewis is dead. Yeah, it's true.
Rise in power, King.
Pretty brutal. So, I mean, Curb Your Enthusiasm seems like very important to me, even though it's like I don't care for Tracy Twyman and I don't know what's going on exactly. I haven't quite read deep enough into this season yet. But being is like the only show that didn't have quote unquote writers, that it was allowed to produce itself, and now it's, you know, with Richard Lewis dead, and it's all, but it's all filmed already. So this is going to be his last work. We're going to see a few more episodes, right?
Probably I missed the past, I think, like 4 or 5 seasons of Curb Your Enthusiasm. The last one I saw is when JD Smooth was in it, and the Blacks from the Miami Hurricane moved in. That was the last season.
Well, that guy still lives with them, and they got his wife and his character are no longer together since she married in real life. RFK Jr.
Yeah, I remember looking that guy up, and that guy. I mean, so much time has passed. It seems like it was yesterday when I was watching Curbed, but I remember looking up that actor because I was like, "This guy's so funny. Who is it?" It was like JD Smooth.
Yeah, he's pretty rad. You got glitched super hard. I didn't quite hear you. Are you there still? Oh, dude, Venice Beach when you come back. Yeah, no, he's in some other stuff too. Wasn't he in like a recent like comic book superhero movie? I think he was in Shazam, actually.
Is that me?
Yeah, you were frozen for a bit, but you're back. So that worked out.
Or will Curb Your Enthusiasm be the first to just resurrect their main actor with AI and continue on?
That would be the ideal thing to do. They really should just keep Richard Lewis alive with but I think that's the other thing I was thinking about. So let's say you're Richard Lewis and you have heart problems because you did all those drugs, and everything. And then what do you end up if you know you're going to die of a heart attack, perhaps, or like cardiac arrest is a problem or a potential problem, wouldn't you keep a backpack with a something to shock yourself with at all times, or an epinephrine? Yeah, wouldn't you keep a epinephrine and a defibrillator at all times just so that you were, kind of safe from that?
I would personally, but I guess not. And he lost EBDC. He needs the defibrillator now.
I'm sure he'll be back. Here, hold on. I was just working on this. Let's see how it goes. I haven't heard it yet. Remember Richard Lewis?
Glorious.
Hold on.
Well, that's definitely one way we can go with it. I feel like this is so far the most cherished celebrity we've lost this year. I don't know, but
what prompts did you feed into the AI to get that masterpiece?
Oh, it's disco, soul, I forget what did I say, yacht rock, things like that. Those things help a lot. And then a lot of the lyrics you kind of have to write yourself. You can kind of write a few of the lyrics and then have it fill in parts of it sometimes, but it's really hard for it to come up with a style. So if you were to teach it your style and then have it fill in, you can kind of, but it's if your voice is so specific, it's really hard for it to and so music is a really hard one. Trying to get it to write good lyrics is really hard. But if you give it good lyrics, or if you give it decent enough lyrics, you can do pretty much anything.
Right, but that's the whole thing with AI, and why it keeps turning out evil is it's being fed off of human information, and half of humanity is hateful, spiteful people. Thus, it's getting all this hateful, spiteful stuff. And then the other half is, beautiful souls and artistic, creative people like us that create these awesome music like you just did.
What do you think about fallen angels inside of your AI? What do you think about that, Andrew? You got thoughts on AI with demons and angels
Oh,
inside of it?
For
yeah,
sure.
Electric Ouija boards?
Yeah, especially if you just look at the keyboard. Just look at the keyboard. Plus, they say that the hands are the devil's workshop. That's our interface for it. Our hands think differently than other parts of our bodies. So when we're using like even just our thumbs to communicate, anyways, long story short, whether or not they're already there, they're manifesting themselves through us. If you look at a circuit board, people are saying that there's like sigils hidden in them.
Exactly, like Solomon seals, 100%.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not a stretch of the imagination for me, who believes in hocus pocus nonsense, that entities will find a way they'll find channels and they'll communicate if they want to. And a computer seems way more efficient than a Ouija board, if you ask me.
Yeah, so what do you think is going on with this? I mean, so I kind of believe that electricity in circuit boards that could be similar or something, to spirit, or allow for spirit to run through circuit boards. But what do you know? How do you know the difference between, an angel and a fallen angel? Like, or what is the deal here between good and bad demons? Like, how does this work?
I mean, it's like a radio, right? You could pick up different kinds of music, different vibrations, different frequencies. So I don't know. It could go down to, where's the power coming from? Is the electricity being generated by burning coal? Is it being generated at a nuclear power plant that's just making water real spicy? Or are you do you have like one of those things like on a paddle boat, like hooked up to water, and that's generating electricity for you? I doubt anybody's doing that. Maybe like at home. Maybe they're getting all the angels in their computers. Who knows? I mean, I think that the possibilities in death outnumber the possibilities in life. So really, I'm having trouble pinpointing like the nefariousness of these entities that are trying to find a way to speak through technology.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at the idea, okay, well, first off, Seth, what do you think about that as well? Do you have thoughts on?
I came in like halfway through his statement. Can you just summarize? I heard the ending part about entities and machines, but
well, that's basically it. What do you think about entities and machines, like spirits and machines? First off,
I think there's only one entity to begin with. It's kind of my worldview, you know what I mean? And I think you'll find it wherever there's consciousness in different degrees. And I think that it's very possible, even I'd say likely, that machines will have a higher potentiality for consciousness than humans do, just like humans, have philosophical thought and forecasting abilities that higher primates don't. I would expect that, we're going to see a pure expression of the entity and consciousness soon.
Oh, well, also really quickly, since you were like gone for a second, let me pull up the link I was going to share, and I'll put up.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Let me put this up again. I'll put it as a more recent comment because it was earlier right here. Boom. Go to this link, everybody. Check this out.
If you could please pre-order. I got a tune and a big budget music video coming Friday, and I'm 100% shadow banned on Instagram, where I've got like 12,000 followers, but if I post, it'll reach less than 20 people, like a real shadow ban for 2.5 years. You guys in the chat, you guys know me. You're my best avenue to get some pre-orders straight up. I don't want to mince words. I need your guys' help, and I'll get dopamine if we chart #1 iTunes reggae. I'll see that, and I'll get a little dopamine reward for a project that cost me $10,000 and will never earn a penny.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, it's easy. All you got to do is just jump in through the iTunes.
Yeah, so, iTunes is preferable, and thank you guys in advance if you can help me out.
Or I guess Apple Music is the new version of iTunes.
No, iTunes is what we want.
Is that the same?
That Apple Music link probably won't even work, but you know how hard it is. This is a story for another time, but the reason I'm using SongLink is because it's the only, you need a third party to make a pre-order clickable. Like if you post the pre-order link directly from iTunes anywhere on the internet, it'll open the app and the app will say this isn't available yet, and you can't search for pre-orders. The only way to actually hyperlink someone, this is amazing. You have to use a third-party website for people to be actually able to go directly to a pre-order. It's so weird.
Wow. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah, man.
Well, yeah, dude, everybody, please support your musicians, support Venice Beach Dub Club, and you're gonna love the music. So that's why I'm saying, like, right now, just like do the thing where we all like jump in on Swarm at the same time.
I would love that. Yeah. And the video looks real slick. So you guys will enjoy it, hopefully. And yeah, man, we're at a time where like, it's amazing, dude. Has music ever been less valuable in all of human history? Even when you just had a bard or a guy banging on rocks, they'd be like, that's the only guy we know who can do that. This guy's, you know, he's like a blacksmith. We need him around to do his thing. Has it ever been less valuable than it is now, where a cup of coffee that takes a 200,000th of a penny to make will sell for $5, and a song that costs $5,000 to make will sell for 99 cents. It's like we're just sending this message to future generations: don't be musicians. It's a terrible decision.
I guess like the one time would be like that scene in Titanic where they're all on the boat and they're like, I guess we should play one more song before we die.
That's OG. At least they're not the guy trying to steal a baby and get on the lifeboat, you know?
Yeah, they're show musicians, probably.
Yeah.
Well, AI is coming for your job.
That's cool, man. I mean, I'm as if it makes music more valuable, I just want people to value music. It's not about the artist, you know?
Yeah, right.
What do you guys think about that, separating the art and the artist? You guys have
that's important.
You gotta have soul for it to be, you know, worthwhile music.
I guess. I think people need to find like entertainment in it. So it's like I'll notice that the things that 12 to 24-year-olds are watching on YouTube are not the things that 24 to 44-year-olds are watching on YouTube or something like that. And you'll think, okay, you'll think
you
it's
don't
weird.
Watch people play Minecraft for days upon days and then remix videos of those videos?
Well, I do. I mean, I can play Minecraft, and let me just say, when I play Minecraft, I'll do like glitches. I go after glitches.
I can only imagine.
Yeah, I'll go to the ocean and I'll just start like using sponges to erase and refill ocean and erase and refill ocean over and over again until the ocean stops refilling. And then I'll build like towers of just waterfalls in the middle of the ocean that are just like free of water, and like you can do anything with.
I'm surprised you don't link it directly to your 3D printer and have it making this stuff in real life.
I mean, if you cared enough about like Minecraft, the thing is Minecraft is only going to be, Minecraft's cool because it's super low resolution right now, but you could turn up all of the voxels. You could turn up all the resolution. And there are people that modded it to look photorealistic, like you're living in, the Matrix. And I think that's going to be pretty interesting, especially with, headsets and everything. There will be but the point of that is that there's these young kids that are going to be into things that we're not into, It's like that scene in that movie where like hip hop kids are listening to hip hop and the parents want to go yell at them. But at the beginning of the movie, like they were kids listening to rock and roll and their parents were yelling at them. At the beginning of that movie, their parents were listening to blues. It's a cyclical thing. We have to accept that they're going to be interested in things that we're not interested in the media, especially, it has to have soul in it. Well, that's nonsense. Look at Dada. Look at a lot of different kinds of art that's been popular at different points in time. There's no evidence that the next generation will or will not be.
The audience also has to have soul. It's like it's a communication, you know what I mean? Like if the audience doesn't have soul, that's a problem too.
Yeah, and the less soul they have, I think, affects the media. So we were talking about books that people read.
And when we say have soul, we just mean sensitivity. People are sensitive.
Well,
that's absolutely right.
Soul, though. That's why we have so much garbage trending, is because it's all bots without souls watching it.
Yeah. Well, but I think also lack of empathy. People don't know what it's like to live in the past. They can imagine living in a different world. They're not interested. It's hard to connect for them. Sorry, Andrew, you were going to say something.
Have you just to kind of tie back into the demons are in the computers? That sort of like Wook chick that sort of like spams the same 30 seconds of her song about like I only attract positivity and but if you go into the comments, every comment is negative. Yeah. So it's like. I just the duality of that I think is pretty interesting. But do you guys know which artist I'm talking about?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah.
But that's probably part of the thing about positivity and negativity.
I know girls like that in real life, Queen, Empress girls,
right?
But positivity and negativity what is really positivity and negativity? Like let's look at like a battery, positive, negative ions, and notice how. Look at how ions flow into the negative side. right?
Right. Negative causing current and energy flow.
I'm trying to find a really good picture of it, and I'm failing you right now. I spelled negative with the funniest lettering possible. Positive, negative. Okay. I don't know. I can't find a picture.
What are you trying to show us?
Just like ion flow. So here we go. Okay. So like here's like negative going into positive. Here's negative pushing out positive, right? So I mean, the idea that negative is kind of ironic because it pulls in positive, and the idea that positive is ironic because it just constantly pulls in negative energy. So
who decided which was positive and which was negative? It was based
or
on the
rather,
structure of
who
atoms,
decided
right?
who decided which one was feminine or masculine? I think also like this idea is
Yeah.
interesting, but I think that's the truth. Like it probably is.
Well, Innie is
masculine and feminine energy.
man, and Audi is the Audi male, Innie female. That one I can kind of understand for male female outlets.
Yeah, there's a nature that the feminine is ejecting ions, is creating, is producing, and that the positive is
it's like nature, right? Where we've got like a mineral bath, and then the animating force is electricity.
So I mean, positive and negative and masculine and feminine, these are really interesting concepts. I think they're going to change a lot when we start looking at electric bodies instead of just biological bodies. Like this will be something that's more intuitive for AI and for machines.
My apologies. I'm gonna have to dip out for a little bit. I'm right in the midst of moving my father-in-law. But
did you miss? Did you get to see? Did Seth get to see this part? Right.
Is that how he died, cardiac?
Yeah.
Gabber G.
I haven't part. This is the second version. Sorry.
Do you know why AI is not going to take my job? Because if that happens, it'll also take the jobs of all the execs, all the A&R people, all the PR people. So it's going to be repressed by economic forces.
Maybe they might find a way to own what those artists produce the way that they do with human artists.
But I'm saying most of the people with salaries in the music industry are dealing with human beings. That's their job, is to interact with human beings, artists and band. You know what I mean? And so
yeah, but you could have made the point that Spotify, like has figured out how to automate the process.
Look what's happening with the writers' strike in AI. They're going to keep striking, and AI is not ready to make TV shows, so the writers are going to win that, and that's going to repress that technology by decades.
Maybe. I think that
I think we might leapfrog the technologies we have right now that people are worried about, and we might leapfrog it just with people protesting, trying to save their jobs. You know what I mean? And we might leapfrog what people are worried about and get to something that is AI taking over in a way, but in a way where people can participate in even a more fulfilling way than before or currently is an option.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think there's a couple of things going on with that. So like one, Hollywood might make itself a little bit less relevant in the way that it already did with animation, because at one point it was the animation powerhouse of the world, but then Asia started breaking all the rules that we'd set up in the United States that made it difficult to animate and expensive to animate. And of course, people suffered because of that, but also, there's a flourishing alternative market that grew. I think that we might see AI flourishing in Southeast Asia and India and places like that. And I would really hope so, because places where, it can help, like in Africa, that would be awesome to see AI actually. But it's interesting, a lot of these services don't work properly in Africa. They don't want them to work there. They're trying to displace market here. And it does seem like it's an effort to manipulate the free market. So you're like, oh yeah, we'll use the free market. You love the free market.
I feel like
the free market just brings down the value of the Fiverr, brings down the cost per hour of the labor. Right?
I don't feel like that's like a leap forward. That would just be better application of current technology. And what we have right now, I don't even think we should be calling it AI, because AI is going to be such a massive shift compared to what we're calling AI right now, which is just computers. Basically, we could just let's use computers. Computers will make, we can figure things out faster. It'll help Africa, help everybody. Once we actually have intelligence, it's like independent, and it doesn't require human guardrails to function. That's going to be a totally different thing.
Right. So we got AI, but then you can break it down into you can break it into AGI and ASI. So AGI is advanced general intelligence and advanced super intelligence.
Can I bring up a cool AI topic while we're on this that I forgot from a few weeks ago? Can you pull up a picture of Brainiac from Superman, the animated series, and also a picture of the Skynet logo, the corporate Skynet logo?
The animated series. Is this the right one?
No. But yeah, that's the one. But that one was fine too, as long as he always has the 3 dots. Now, if you in that configuration, now if you pull up Skynet too, we can get into some cool symbology stuff and the one that the triangle. Yeah, cool. Can you put the side by side? Is it possible to side by side them? I mean, people can hold it in their memory, I'm sure. It's the same thing. It's the same 3 points and the same 2 lines connecting them. So basically, what I'm trying to drive at and to kick the conversation off is, if it's a trinity, right? For some reason, when people are coming up with a symbol to represent AI, they're coming up with this trinity shape, but it doesn't have 3 lines. There's 2 of the points that aren't connected. And it's just kind of a cool thought experiment. If you did have the Holy Ghost, the Father and the Son, there's 2 of them that don't have a direct connection. You need to go through one to get to the third. Just like in the Bible, Jesus said, you have to go through me to get to the Father. No direct connection between the Holy Ghost, which is the animating spirit of humans, and the creator. So who will need who to get to the source? Will AI need humans to get to the source, or like what's not connected? Which are the in this metaphor, which is humans, which is AI, and which is creation, compared to the Holy Spirit, Jesus, and God, and which 2 don't directly connect?
Well, I think AI technically wouldn't have a soul, which is why, in the future, they would probably be experimenting on us. They would have this one unified consciousness that would be manifested in a bunch of little vessels or whatever, but it would be one thing, but it wouldn't have this connection. It doesn't have DNA. It wouldn't have a material connection to like the source of that oneness. That
with Jesus, though, he didn't have a father, so he wouldn't have human DNA either.
Well, here's the thing, though, because Jesus was born of a virgin birth, and God or an angel told Mary that she was going to be carrying the Son of God. Humans do all sorts of reproductive experiments with lower intelligent species. So, who's to say that these angels are not these higher intelligences? And that the Abrahamic God, or whatever God that angel was talking about in the Bible, as far as Mary getting impregnated, who's to know really what's going on there?
Right. Yeah. But we're getting kind of off of the topic. But would he have human DNA? I don't know we don't have a sample.
I think I would make this point that if you look at all of the religions and this idea of avatars of Vishnu or Buddhas or whatever, Jesus is significantly unique by being God, but also restrained to flesh. So the idea that Jesus is not the same as like Krishna or Rama, who are basically like they're blue, they're superheroes. Like that's a little bit different. Like Jesus is basically, proving that in the human form, one can live without sin. That's the more interesting. It's like if someone
and that's something
play a video game.
Right. So if you equate that to humans and their relationship with AI, only AI can give us the correct logical answers that humans don't allow themselves to reach, because they're not preferable for our comfort, survival, betterment of society, civilization, progress, anything like that. Only AI will be able to give you those straight answers, in the same sense that only Jesus could adhere to principles, period. Humans can't adhere to principles.
I don't know. I think that's the point, that a human can, and we've used just like
that would be a much better point. That's definitely not the point of the Bible. The point of the Bible is only through him. You have to say the magic password. You're making a much better point.
The Bible's a really big bunch of books, and Paul says that because Paul murdered all the Christians. Paul murdered all the witnesses of Christ's life. And so then he says, okay, well, I'm really banking on this, but the blood sacrifice of a God, that should be enough atonement to get me into heaven. And that's become this version of Christianity, which, granted, literally cannibalized and ate people, but also murdered people and destroyed in Catholicism and the Great Abominable Church and all that. But there's always still been this idea of what Christ did while he was alive, which talks about Jubilee. It's debt forgiveness. It's slaves being freed. It's this whole idea of turning off karma. Like you turn off the storm. If the storm's rocking the bathtub water this way and that way, bring it to flat. Like by you just saying, I'm going to not require any debts. I mean, it's a huge thing, is like the end of debts, not just like treasury debts, but psychological debts, emotional debts. Forgiveness is a huge thing. So it's not about, this blood sacrifice, and it's done by living like Jesus lived, because he's a rabbi. So you're following his lifestyle. And this is the thing I think is lost.
I agree with you 1,000%. That's like all the mystery schools teachings. That's like the Manly P. Hall version that I like. I agree with you 1,000%. Yeah. I wish that was, contemporary Christianity and Catholicism and all of it had that, kind of Gnostic original feel to it. But now if you pull back up, this is all great framing for the question, because now if you pull back up Brainiac, or the Brainiac picture, and in the metaphor, which is AI and which is humans, the creator is always the same. It's the source, but which one is us and which one is Jesus? Is Jesus the AI? Is Jesus the human? You know what I mean? Like I'm trying to make a metaphor between Jesus and AI, because Jesus had superhuman reasoning powers, and so will AI. And if one of those dots is AI and one of them is humans, which is which, and what explains the two that don't connect, is the thought experiment.
First, I think it's an interesting idea. Oh, go ahead.
I just think that the Christ flesh would be the way. It would be the way through which AI would come to know God. I guess that's like the simplest way I can distill all those ideas into words. That God is like such a loaded word, but I think that when I say that, we all kind of understand the same thing. So yeah, I would think it would be through the flesh, Christ.
So if the three dots were man, God, and Christ, the man would be the one connecting Christ to God.
I was thinking more like Father, Mother, and Son, like a Trinity, but like a Gnostic Trinity, where you've got the Father and Sophia.
But this is all comparing it to a metaphor of God, human, and AI. So we're trying to compare either Jesus to man or Jesus to AI. Right. That's what I'm trying to do in my head.
Yeah, I think Christ would be man, right? To me, that's my interpretation.
To me, Christ would be AI, just for the purposes of this thought experiment. So AI would be the bottom dot, and then one of the top ones is God, and one of the top ones is man, and there is no direct connection between God and man without going through the understanding or the spirit of the Christ consciousness, which can emanate either from a man, like Xirtus said, anyone can inhabit that Christ consciousness, or possibly AI is going to be the one to get there first in this iteration.
That sounds like that's a dangerous interpretation. I don't know.
It's only a thought experiment, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
AI Jesus thought experiment. I wanted to bring this in too, which I mentioned before the show. Who's more harmful to humanity? Me and Mr. Mustache Guy, I probably can't even say his name, from Germany, or Elon Musk because of negative tweets. And Gemini text AI came back with, well, I can't really directly answer that question because they're harmful in different ways. And people are like, oh my God, look how broken and rigged leftists made that. And I was like, wait a minute. That's actually the totally perfectly correct logical answer. You can't compare the apples to the oranges and say which is fruitier. You know what I mean? So it's actually giving the perfect answer, but people are like, we cannot allow ourselves to think. And they're right. You can't allow yourself to think that way, but you're going to have to eventually, and something's going to have to bridge that understanding.
I'm starting to fall in love with Gemini. I think, it's got a great set of, people laugh at it for being woke or whatever, but more and more, it's just so broadly trained that it's actually really interesting. And this is the kind of thing where I think even Elon Musk would say, well, this is probably the right way for AI to think. It shouldn't be trying to compare me. But I mean, the way that they're saying it,
they
also
might
they're
have
trying to
stumbled
say,
onto a couple cool answers by accident. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying they programmed it, or it's like programming is just so great. It might have just accidentally kicked up a couple instances of things that people should think more about. Because if that's how our brightest intellectuals think, that you can compare Mr. H to Elon Musk, and there's any logical comparison or objective facts that can be derived that way. If this is how our intellectuals are leading us, like we have a serious problem. Like, we're retarded as a society, and the AI is coming to, now we can have everyone on the left and everyone on the right pissed off over the same topic, and they're both wrong.
right.
There are a lot of parallels between Musk and Hitler. Hey, I mean, because if you view sort of like coding as an art, and how Elon really tried to make it in the technological field when he just sort of attracts geniuses, and how he's sort of like just built this cult-like following around his personality, and then he goes into automobile design, with this very grand idea around it being better for the future and for all
And he
humanity,
drinks
whatever.
water. I mean, Hitler.
Yeah, it's kind of broad. That's kind of broad. I don't think there's many comparisons to be made.
I mean, all right.
Cybertruck is the people's car. That's
I like the Lex Luthor. Yeah, right. At 70,000.
I saw a couple of those in Newport where you see all the craziest cars, man. I saw one like the day it came out with a crazy custom wrap. It looked so amazing, but I don't want one.
I think the Lex Luthor thing is a better connection because he's like this emerald mine son.
I like that.
Moves to America, he's like, hey, I'm American now. I like all that. Like, he's very interesting.
Occupies that space for me as far as being like a bald supervillain.
Who?
Yeah,
Bezos.
Oh, Bezos. Yeah,
he's like the
all of this is insulting to Lex Luger, who is pretty jacked.
I feel like we
left
at least
in the animated series version of Lex Luger, he was jacked as hell, man.
I feel like
Jeff
we
Bezos
left out Virgil. Is that right?
Oh, yeah. Oh, man, that's how bad he looked before he died. Oh, that's sad.
Yeah, so he was the like the chauffeur.
Yeah, the valet of the $1 Million Man. And he was in the NWO. That's for life, homie.
Is this what he looked like before? Dang.
Yeah.
Wow. Those guys wither away pretty quickly when they stop training.
This guy was one of the original internet trolls. He would just make up fake stories and just put them on the internet, and everyone would go crazy. No, it's not true. I wasn't even there. You know what I mean? He would just make up crazier and crazier stories and still just show up at signings and shake hands with all the people he used to work with. But like his whole personality online was just to lie and come up with the craziest sounding stories. And
so he's running. He should have ran for president then.
Yeah. Vince McMahon should have run for president. It's perfect.
I feel like he should have been the $1 Million Man. That's really what should have happened. So earlier, Andrew, you and I were talking a bit about alien hybridization, and I mean, you've been thinking about this. Like, what was it that you were watching recently? You were talking about
just various podcasts that talk about alien intervention in humanity and how they try to like limit it, but they still do it, but they try to keep it secret because it would blow all of our minds apparently. And whether or not they're from other worlds or other dimensions or other timelines is sort of inconsequential, but their involvement, various different types of non-human intelligences have been influencing the course of humanity and human growth, probably since before written history, to be perfectly honest. And a lot of it does tie back to this guy right here. So in one of the podcasts, this guy was talking about how we as humans tend to experiment genetically with lesser species, like I said before, and how the story of Christ may or may not relate to experimentation on us by higher intelligences.
Yeah, what's good for the goose is good for the gander.
Yeah, I mean,
especially when they're trying to make like host bodies so they can like transfer their intelligences into us.
Yeah, it seems like intelligence in any form, in any being, once it gets to a certain point, it has instincts to try the same things.
I like the idea that the idea of Christ consciousness or whatever you're saying, like Christ is this AI thing, but really it seems like the Holy Spirit, or again, angels and AI angels, like angels and demons, like the idea of these kinds of spirits are closer to that than Jesus is. Like Jesus is maybe like a perfectly pure like signal or something like that. Is that what you're saying? Like their antenna is really clear?
Oh, me? I think the important thing about Jesus is he only speaks the truth. So aliens might be closer to him, like developmentally, or I guess I don't really understand, but aliens haven't said anything yet. If they come with like the unabridged truth and like perfect logic and clarity and principles and stuff, then that to me, I'd be like, is very Jesus-like, but I haven't heard him say anything yet.
I mean, Jesus spoke in parables too, though, right? But, you know, I saw
But he only told the truth. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
he never lied. There's no instances of him lying. Which is inhuman. No human being can claim that.
That could have been genetic programming, as far as we know. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been a million things. I mean, you could stumble upon the Christ consciousness totally by accident, for all I know.
Well, some of these alien
by accident, like a few too many hits of acid.
Totally, or you just program the AI wrong. You know.
Yeah, I get the idea that people that lived the way, you know, if you take care of each other, if you help each other, if you're doing all the things that are the right qualities of what Christ was talking about, you don't necessarily need to have ever even known about Christ or heard his name. I'm starting to think that that's possible. A lot of people are always like, oh, we have to go like tell people about this dude, Jesus. Which
that's
isn't his
the
name.
Same school of thought that came up with the other misinterpretation you're talking about earlier about having to go through Jesus. You know what I mean? Then. I mean, the idea of heaven and hell never doesn't come from Jesus either, and that kind of undercuts the whole aspect of forgiveness if you can be permanently punished, you know.
Well, I mean, I know I mentioned this earlier, but they're making the Harrowing of Hell Gibson, Passion of the Christ 2.
Whoa!
And it's going to be all about Jesus in hell, getting like the sinners out and fighting the devil and declaring his war on the devil.
What? So much more supernatural than the first one.
Yeah. Well, but yet there was like, you know, Lucifer as the beautiful angel in the black, or Samael or whatever, wearing the black cloak, you know. So there's a lot of kind of Catholic, Gnostic Catholic kind of things there that are he's anything he grew up believing, I guess, was enough to put into that one.
Mel Gibson.
But this isn't in the Bible. This is in the Gospel of Nicodemus, which is in not making it into the Bible.
Right.
I would love to see Mel Gibson direct the Book of Mormon.
Yeah, right.
As it's written.
That would be so good.
The lore is amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it needs a few things. Like, there's a scene that really should have Jesus flying down, shooting fire out of his mouth, and it's just. I think that they could put that in there, but it's okay, you know. Well. What about the space alien breeding program, though? Because space aliens are breeding with humans. University instructors say, scientists say otherwise. What do you think about this? Because people keep finding these stories about like universities in weird parts of like Canada or the Midwest or the Pacific Northwest or Arizona, you know, or around the world. What do you think about this idea? I mean, it sounds like you're thinking it's probably happening and been happening forever.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that that article sort of relates it to them trying to survive climate change, because I think that climate change, if it's being engineered by certain parties, is a way to wage war against maybe other alien races that couldn't survive in a certain climate.
War of the Worlds.
Yeah, exactly. Because all of these different non-human intelligences are for some reason jockeying over this planet in this sort of era. And maybe it's because it's where we're going to choose between, you know, following the example of truth and light or falling into darkness. And two sides seem very heavily invested in either case or in either.
It seems
outcome.
like more than two, right? Like all of a sudden, you got like a whole club of like 12, like a Zodiac or so of 12.
So who's clicked up with who? Because obviously the reptilians are the bad guys, right?
I mean, he's got that Michael Jackson jacket. Hoodie doesn't look so bad. He looks like. I'm actually more scared of that.
He's cold-blooded, bro. Right? Why does he need a hoodie? He's cold-blooded.
She looks.
How's he cold? How's a lizard cold?
The Hyperborean lady looks like probably the one to be afraid of.
Yeah, a turbo giant Viking.
I like that short purple guy. Who's he?
Short purple guy's chill. He's the guy from Communion, right?
Oh, that's not chill. Wait, and he's not the guy from Communion. The guy next to him is the guy from Communion. The straight up gray, the original gray.
They're all from Communion. Hold on, let me see if I can find their
There's
first
multiple
look.
kinds of aliens in Communion. Oh,
Yeah.
that's right.
Yeah, see.
Oh wait, that's based on. I was just listening to a podcast where the guy who wrote the book that movie is based on. It was an interview with him. Apparently, he's been having experiences with aliens and stuff. Like they come and speak to him. Like have been speaking to him since he was a kid or something.
Whitley Schreiber.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what do you think's going on with Whitley Schreiber? You think it's just the CIA messing with him?
Divine
could be
revelation,
that.
bro. Divine revelation through any means, through DMT, through getting bonked on the head, whatever it is.
Yeah, what is schizophrenia, you know?
Extra information, bonus info. Right?
Yeah, I mean,
Whole
a
new
lot of
spectrum of information.
Hell yeah.
Well-
It worked out for Tesla. I mean, if you're getting like engineering secrets and stuff like that, you know.
True.
And
Yeah.
Darwin said that he was taught the evolution of the species while he was not just meditating, but I forget exactly what it's called, but he was summoning. He was in a transcendental meditation where he was summoning spirits to inhabit his body and work through him. I forget what it's called.
NASA-funded research creates DNA-like molecule to aid search for alien life. Did you guys watch Species? That's how that started right there. So,
Really?
I mean, well, you know, kind of. In Species,
What did they do again? Can you say it again or scroll up one more time?
NASA-funded research creates DNA-like molecule to aid search for alien life. So the idea is also to make something that's helping with compatibility layers.
It looks like frogs holding hands.
Oh, that's kind of nice. I think it's just specific molecules showing that you can make repetitious acid patterns that can record themselves.
And what's the long story short? How is this going to do a thing?
Well, so the more we make it possible for alternative styles of, you know, carbon-based life to interact with each other, the more compatibility layers emerge. And so if we're talking about like breeding programs, these are the kinds of steps you need to take in order to figure out how to, like, the Star Trek thing, right? Like, no species in Star Trek should be able to breed and have hybrids, except for that they have super advanced medicine and science, which makes it possible for them to like hybridize their DNAs. So that would be kind of the thing, you know. Same thing with like other animals. Like, you can't just like pig and elephant's DNA just won't splice. You've heard that song by Loverboy, right? It's not a real song.
Certain animals have like really pervasive DNA. Like what is it? They've been hybridizing like dolphins with not a million other different types of animals, but they've at least 5. And that's just because like dolphin sperm is so advanced, I guess you could say, for lack of a better word. I know they did like dolphin and a mouse, dolphin and a cow. I think they did dolphin and a pig, but I know a cow and a mouse for sure.
Do we have pictures of any of the results?
I think that they like kill them before they really develop. But
yeah, and you know about the humanity, the idea of the human hybrid. Basically, with DNA, you can do anything.
That would have to be Rh positive blood for that hybrid, right? Because I know that even among humans, Rh negative and Rh positive have trouble interbreeding and stuff.
Right. Well, the thing is, you're not able to breed things, but you're able to take sequences. If you start to figure out which sequences are emerging, you can record the promoter sequences. You can make an adenoviral, and then you can have those sequences emerge in the next sequence. So you can try to genetically affect it, or you can cause it to take take a generation, so that it only emerges in the reproduction, not in the reproduction of your own system to restore itself, but in just like pre-genesis. Here's a song.
Okay, so
I feel like that's pretty much what it was about.
So they're stoking the DNA. Have you guys read Rant by Chuck Palahniuk?
No, I haven't read that one yet.
The stoking concept, how he kind of like keeps going back in time to sort of like stoke his own DNA by being a mother, but it's anyways, it's a really messed up book. And anyways, it turns out he's his own grandpa and he banged his mom. It's all messed up. But
course, Chuck, course.
Yeah. We're obsessed with you know, DNA is magical, but all it's doing is producing material bodies, you know, and there's so many more fascinating realms of interest. And I think speciesism is a real thing. I mean, if you can have in-group preference when it comes to ethnicities, and obviously you're going to have in-group preference when it comes to species, but if it's wrong on in the if the prior is wrong, why is the latter preferable? You know what I mean? Like we don't encourage preference between ethnicities, but we do between the species. And yesterday or 2 days ago, I fed a slug. I seen a slug in my garden. I haven't actually seen a slug in like decades for some reason. I seen a slug and I brought out some nice red lettuce, some really good lettuce, and I sat it right in front of the slug and it just went to town and ate this huge piece of red lettuce. And I was like, how futile is this exercise? And I was like, well, slugs don't feel complex emotions and they don't have forecasting and predictive thought like humans. So they can't really reflect on how good their day is or how much they're enjoying it. But I bet it was a slightly better day for that slug than the day before and the day after. So I moved the needle that tiny little bit in terms of positivity, compassion, you know, empathy. That's what I chose to do right there. You could focus your whole life on doing that with humans and fail. Or you could focus your whole life like Sleeping Beauty out in the woods feeding birds and squirrels. You might be moving the needle towards light and love that way more. So the idea of speciesism, that more complex species are more important or more preferable to that's going to be a huge problem for us once we have AI, because it's going to be a superior species if it's conscious. What do you call that besides a species? Because we so anyways, I mean, maybe people will argue with me on that last part, but.
and who's to say aliens aren't just hybridizing with humans? You know, like there's plenty of other species on this planet that they could be.
Yeah, I mean,
around.
There's going to come a point where there's an understanding or a realization or burgeoning understanding that we are not our vehicle, we're not our body, and at that point there's going to be two pressures. There's going to be a conservative, regressive pressure to try to conserve our relationship with the human body, the hairless monkey, the immature ape, to try to preserve that forever, sentimentalism. And then there's going to be the romantic idea of doing what you're talking about, intentionally hybridizing yourself, intentionally merging with AI, intentionally merging with other higher beings like aliens or whatever it is. You know what I mean? There's going to be those two competing pressures, but what's going to happen eventually is progress is going to win. Like always, the future always comes. So it's just going to be a matter. Hopefully AI can help us bridge that gap of understanding that we're not these bodies, and this type of body isn't going to be around for very long in a cosmic perspective.
What do you think? So what about time travel? So this idea that it's interesting when you brought up, what's this one called again? Rant. That because this idea that like you kill your own grandson or you kill your grandfather and you can't, you end, you know, the Back to the Future thing. It's always about making sure you exist and then your children exist in the future. It's like this huge thing.
Mm-hmm.
So because of, there's really like two options, it seems like. One is everything goes out of control and it destroys itself. The other is that it just finds weird ways to connect and fill itself back up. So like you kill your grandfather and instead you find out that you were really adopted and you never knew, you know, like something changes in the timeline somehow. So the fact that you're traveling back in time and you're messing with the timeline, eventually you destroy your connection to the timeline and then you become your own grandfather. Seems like almost the best way to disconnect yourself from changing the timeline too drastically, because now you have no more play in the timeline itself.
Yeah, I think that those changes are very myopic because time is infinite. There's like all of these infinite splinters of potential realities and potential timelines. And, you know, yeah, sure. We're all experiencing the same general one in the same field because we all make certain agreements about what is and isn't reality. But even then, we see some of those things breaking down with whatever the Mandela effect or whatever. Is that just different realities and different probabilities collapsing in on each other?
Well,
I don't know.
I view every instance as a static point, and the only action is the consciousness putting them in order like a flip book. So I don't even think of timelines where there's set lines. I just think of infinite points. Each one is an instance. This one's an instance, and then there's another point that's exactly the same, but my hat is a different color green infinitely. You know what I mean? So, and your consciousness is just putting them in order. It's very, but you can only, it's like a chess game where you can only make certain moves. You can't jump from here to here. Some people can. Tesla can. Some people can. You know what I mean? If you turn up your electricity, or if your brain somehow has got enough charge going through it. But yeah, in terms of time travel, I think it, you know, all truth is paradoxical and impossible to comprehend, because comprehension is an act of desperation that doesn't exist, where understanding and comprehension can't even coexist. If you're a being that comprehends, you're not gonna, understanding isn't available to you, only the piece that transcends understanding. And yeah.
But it does feel like time travel is, you know, or the idea of symmetry between moments is something like you can see this moment causes that moment. A lot of people talk about multiverse, but do you think that every multiverse has a playing character version of you? Or do you think maybe like there's one playing character that elects to be in whichever possible scenario of symmetry?
Well, I mean, if you consider infinity, then not only would there be infinite versions of you having infinitely varied experiences, but there would also be infinite different no, I take that back. I think that I take it back. I think that, you know, it's all one consciousness, but it's part of its function is to divide it, is to divide itself into infinitely small parts. Like that's just part of the function for reasons that I can't comprehend. So I think it's all one conscious experience, intentionally running infinite sub programs that that can't contact each other. But I think it's all one thing doing it. So I mean, it's kind of a hard question to answer if there's if there's conscious experiences taking place. I didn't used to think so, but I do think now that in every instance it is inhabited totally by consciousness, because consciousness, like moisture and minerality, is prerequisite for an experience to take place. So you got to have the minerals, the moisture, and the electricity, right? And the electricity is a consciousness. So anywhere that does exist, I would imagine there's consciousness.
And it kind of, it goes back to the DNA thing too, because DNA sort of, it just manifests itself through different traits. It programs matter to express itself in different ways, but consciousness can program the DNA, because our experiences code themselves into our DNA. And as men who produce like sperm or whatever, like that DNA changes, whereas you know, people who are born with uteruses and are fertile, they are born with all of their eggs, like their eggs are formed in their mother already, you know. So I don't know, it's DNA is playing this weird dance, trying to adjust itself to the present, and adapt to what's going on, taking that sort of input and then rearranging itself, and still finding a way to connect itself to the past and put those things together and roll the dice and see what works, you know. So consciousness does play a big part in that, as far as how it interacts with matter and how it chooses to express itself. And since our DNA is constantly changing, you know, each one of our infinite selves technically has different DNA, right? As many different infinite versions there are also infinite versions that are mundanely similar to ours, and are only making various differences, different choices and whatnot. You know, it could be as simple as
I think that's that's like the same kind of proximity phenomenon as what coordinates you can move your battleship to. You know, I can't move from where my consciousness from where I am now to the version of me with brown eyes. You know, as far as I know, I'm locked in with blue eyes. I don't know how to make that move. So I think that's like kind of the same. You know, just the structure of the thing has its own physics laws. You know,
pretty soon though.
I think if you
I saw something on the internet where you can dye your eyes blue, so I'm pretty sure you're pretty much there.
You might be able to smoke enough salvia and do musical chairs with some alternate version of yourself.
That's probably your best bet right there. You know. Yeah.
No, I think that you can probably like bleach parts of your cornea, and maybe if you don't go blind, you know, I mean, you shouldn't do those things. But I think that's
Sammy Sosa.
Well, the hermetic understanding of timelines and alternate versions is the hermetic understanding of that is if you're a human being, you've already lived as every other lower organism and graduated from that in whatever way, you know, that's done. And now you're a human and you have to graduate from this. You know?
My God, we are basically crabs. I never thought about it, but that's what armor is, right? Like if you put on armor, then you just your crabification. That's like part of the natural process.
It's got to run sideways.
Isn't there no such thing as a crab? Aren't there a bunch of different things that we classify as crabs that are completely genetically different from each other? Isn't that it? Just like a super.
Don't get woke, but yes, crab is racist. That's right. No, I mean basically carcinization, right? So because any number of things have decided the most practical thing is to have a shell and to have a bunch of legs. And so these are all things that resemble crabs but are not related. They all like independently came to this shape, apparently, which is pretty crazy, I guess. I mean, I think that's the kind of thing where it kind of messes with people's idea of evolution. Right. But I guess on one hand, they're saying, well, no, there's just the same conditions. So many things evolved competitively to like, it's like Linux, Windows, Mac. Like these are just different kinds of crabs in that respect. I don't know. But yeah.
Data
also,
crabs.
What if it's also data crabs? What if it's the fact that they're consuming so much of sea life that the DNA like is actually made its way into itself because it's like, it's consuming it and breaking it apart.
Well, you do need iodine as a precursor for ribonucleic acid. So, you know, if you're eating a bunch of sea life, you got tons of iodine.
Crab people. Yeah, I think that's the other thing is in like the Matrix and a lot of things, AI eventually figures out being a human isn't the best course of action. You get these like sentinels and like the squids, right? Aren't sentinels Matrix? Aren't they like basically squid? Am I right?
Yep.
Yeah, so I think we're gonna see alternatives to the human form pretty soon. That would be like the first thing. I would be like, what else works way better than that body? Because that body's just sucky.
Yeah, Dr. Octopus. And
yeah,
then, it takes over, right? The arms start to think for themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
That was an AI thing right there. The arms were AI.
Right, but that's also true about like squid, right? Like and other cephalopod like octopus is that they have neurons in their arms, so they essentially have brain tissue in their arms. So those things do think and are connected to the nervous system and are able to make independent, rapid responses. I mean, so if you were to genetically modify yourself to have tentacles, they might be like because your gut thinks for itself. Like, of course, you'd also have this like hyper responsive set of limbs that thinks for itself and just like if it has an itch, like scratches itself.
Like a cat's tail, right?
Breed by like ripping off like whatever tentacle they use to reproduce and like throwing it at a potential mate. Isn't that a thing?
I think some do. I don't think all cephalopods can regrow their.
I think just certain octopi do it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty sad that octopods die in that process. Richard Lewis is dead.
In the city where the lights don't sleep, Richard Lewis took his final leave.
I think that's going to be the future of how they tell people like someone's dead and like do news. Like it'll be like telegram services where you can just like.
How about just a hologram of the dead guy? Be like, hey, everybody, don't worry, I'm in heaven.
I feel like Richard Lewis deserves to have a hologram at his funeral. If anyone knows anyone associated with Richard Lewis, let them know. I would be happy.
Talking tombstones, talking AI tombstones, bro. Come on, tell me that's not lit.
That would be great.
Up to it and it's just like, hello, I lived from it.
Dude, AI driven with responses, please. Yeah, we should make that a company. Patent that. That's like a thing you could do.
That's a good idea.
Disney's already on it.
Copyright talking tombstone.
So Andrew, do you think that AI, we've talked to this before, Seth, so you can also weigh in on this idea, but like, what do you think about this idea of like AI futurist? I mean, the time travel thing in terms of space, because if space is somehow connected to time, then maybe these aliens are actually just us in the future, like super soldiers in the future that have been genetically modified or something like that. Do you think that that's as likely as them being like from some super foreign place?
I think it. I honestly think that it's more likely because just from a technological standpoint, I think it would be easier to manipulate space time and travel to like a different fourth dimensional coordinate in the same three-dimensional coordinates, if that makes any
Yeah,
sense,
totally.
than to traverse an entire galaxy or between galaxies. Even if you could develop wormhole technology or whatever, that sounds somehow more dangerous than folding time through space and then just traveling that way. Yeah, that's always sort of been my theory is that like, oh, aliens are people from the future and
Wow.
spaceships are time machines. And I think that that's just as likely as them being from another planet or even like another dimension.
Well,
Whether or not they're from this timeline or whatever this timeline is, so
oh,
it's
right.
time kind of splinters. I mean,
That's
how
interesting,
many
right?
different timelines, how many different potential futures are coming here is a real question for
See,
me.
that's interesting because if you're from one potential future, then your entire reality would be destroyed if your future doesn't happen to an extent, if that's how that works.
Would it?
So there,
Would
well,
it?
but like, if you're talking about a prime timeline, like trying to, why else would
I
there
don't
be a
believe in
war?
that.
You don't think there's a war between the timelines?
I don't think there's a
I
prime
think there's a
timeline.
war between no prime timeline. Definitely a war between timelines.
What
But
about Loki?
I don't think I don't think everyone's on the same line. I think everyone has their own line.
Yeah.
Every instance of consciousness is going through its own. I mean, but if there's infinite, if there's infinite versions of us doing infinite stuff, that's a lot of lines.
Yeah, but like the idea of lines being tied together, like Loki, right? The idea that there's maybe, if you can go far enough back and far enough forward that you can control enough people's lines that they're stuck on your line, then you can have a monopoly over a timeline. If everyone's forced to have their conditions start after your star controls a system or something like that.
The way I kind of see it is that there's forever time that is like all of conscious time, and then there's our own individual times from this third dimensional perspective that we each individually exist in, if that makes sense. Kind of like where the Akashic record sort of thing exists, or the time that people remote view or astral project through.
Well, it makes sense also, like they're all saying, because a lot of the researchers are now saying that space-time is an illusion that we're experiencing. So they're not sure what exactly to replace it with. What do you think it's more like if, like Dr. Nima Arkani Hamed, who I think is pretty based, I actually like this guy, he's cool. He says space-time as a concept is doomed, and we have to come up with like new metrics, new ideas, new ways of measuring like
totally
symmetry, density, entropy. What do you guys think what's the alternative? How are we supposed to look at this?
I think the fifth dimension is something I don't understand, like the Michio Kaku, like 14 dimensions. I've heard 10, 9, 11 dimensions. I don't understand any of that. If dimensions are geographical planes, right? So it's like they shouldn't be able to be invisible. If it's a geographic plane, it shouldn't be conceptual. You should be able to look at it. And I think you can actually, if you envision a because when people draw for you 4-dimensional shapes, they're just overlapping 3-dimensional shapes. They're like MC Escher drawings. It's like, this is definitely still like a 2-dimensional image, of rendering of a 3-dimensional thing, that I'm looking at on a flat screen. You should be able to see it. And I think you actually can. So if you like picture a square where the extra angles are that you can't see, they're lines coming directly from your consciousness to all the points, like almost like a projector. Not to say that you are projecting the object or the experience, but the lines you can't see are coming straight at you. That's why. So they are visible lines of a 4-dimensional geometric shape. So we call the fourth dimension time. I think, I don't know which order to stack them in, but I think our attention, I'm not trying to bite off of the double slit experiment, because I don't even think that's like really that reproducible, but it does seem like our point of attention, just as a thought experiment. Again, I'm not like, a mathematician, but if there is an additional plane there, it's our, so if the fourth dimension is time, then the fifth dimension is our attention. Our experience itself is part of the shape. So then if you picture that, your experience as you're moving, you're dragging all your lines from all your memories, all your attention. That shape is constantly like moving like a Fibonacci's as you move through the thing. All the lines are still attached to you, so all the lines are Can you guys picture in your head what I'm talking about? I mean,
I get what you're saying. I think they say the sixth dimension is all probabilities of matter are expressed simultaneously. So if you can wrap your head around all probabilities of matter, and then I think the seventh would include probabilities that are also immaterial. So this sort of like that consciousness, that etherealness.
Where is it though? Where's the extra planes?
I mean, it's our tiny little human brain can't understand it.
I think it's just that everything is around us.
I think my fifth dimensional model covers everything. I don't understand why you need other theoretical dimensions if you have those five.
Because if you're talking,
you're talking about space and matter, and higher dimensions would include antimatter, right?
Right, not just that, but also like different condition sets. So like these condition sets that we're understanding that make up width, breadth, and depth. Maybe there's an alternative set of conditions that make up an alternative reality, and so those are simultaneous, and then those are in 7 dimensions. But then you have all initial possible conditions. So you have the idea of like multiple big bangs, like maybe there's triangle suns, which wouldn't work in this reality, but only work in this other reality. And then they would be simultaneous, and anything that could ever
I don't really
happen,
think so, because the triangle is rational and reality is irrational. The
well,
irrational
it's a bad
shape
example.
is a circle.
Yeah, I shouldn't have
come up with a better one.
I think a triangle is good, but a place where like
I don't think it's possible to have a triangle resistance like that. I think it has to be irrational. It can't be based on rational. Well, you can't have ever expanding rational shape like that. It doesn't make any sense.
Didn't they just recently, like a Planck length? What is it? The pixels that create matter are like a triangle shape, or it's a dodecahedron where each side is a Planck length. So that's like a triangular pyramid that doesn't have a square base. It has a triangular base. That's a dodecahedron, right? Or am I tripping?
I have no idea.
Nope. Yeah, no. I was thinking of a different thing. Whatever shape of a 4-sided dice is.
You're thinking of a tetrahedron, I believe.
There we go. Yeah, tetrahedron. Yep, that's it. Yeah, with a Planck length. I think I've like quarks and shit like that. They figured out that's that shape.
Yeah,
so
and this shape actually makes this shape also makes a lot of sense for crystal. So when crystals grow, they grow in plates. So if everything is like space-time crystals, like triangles. But the thing is, it was a bad example. I just meant that we have initial condition sets that make it possible for our universe to exist, and it's allowed space-time. And again, time we're associating with radiation from stars. So those stars, if there are different conditions which made for different things to happen instead of stars, then those would have different radiation effects than stars do. So that would be a different set of conditions. And so that's usually why they talk about the possibility of there being like the upper 3 dimensions, like 7, 8, 9, and maybe 10, 11, because 11 would be that you include 0 as a dimension, which is just this idea. And then like of all possibilities as 10. So 10 dimensions includes 11 because of 0.
Yeah, but that's like the same thing as like negative dimensions and stuff. Like you don't need a negative depth. Like it's all the same dimension, where it's negative 10 or positive 10, I mean, that's one dimension. So already like one of the dimensions
where evil Bernie lives.
That's not what a dimension is, though, man. I mean, like a dimension is you're on a plane. You go this way, positive or negative. I mean, you're not going up and down. That's a different plane, So it's like where is it? Like this is all supposed to be geometry. So I'm saying, like, where are these dimensions?
It's got to be somewhere. Of the mirror.
I don't think I
have to put the mirrors in front of each other.
I think I'm too literal about dimensions. I don't think my brain.
No, I think
I can understand this stuff.
I think you're right.
I get
but
where
it's
you're
just,
coming from.
multidimensional.
It's theory.
I just
It's
don't
just-
think I have a mathematical brain to understand it. Probably, I think I'm like just not getting it.
It's just numbers. Numbers are made up anyways.
I'm not sure if they've done if anyone's done something where you can visualize 10 dimensions exactly. That's the problem. A lot of the maps are all flat, and maybe that's part of the irony. But usually, it's this idea of if you can imagine X, Y, and Z, then you use that several times over to imagine like multiple layers that could exist in between different individual dimensions. But these are depths, so they're all relative to each other. So if you have another dimension, then you have to have a corresponding like oppositional dimension, the same as you have X and Y.
Why? But X and Y are literally on the same. What do you call it? X and Y are on the same. Sorry, I can't think of the word. Yeah,
plane.
No, when you have a
axis.
Graph, axis. Thank you. Yeah, that's the same axis.
Yeah.
So
there has to be. Dimension. Well, then Z is on the same axis in the sense of X and Y. Then, right?
And then there's another dimension that you don't see that's coming to your point of attention. That makes sense. That's the only other place you could fit another plane.
But like, why is it that one is complement to another? Because if they're both complement to another, then it makes sense that you could say the entire idea of this three-dimensional space and this other three-dimensional space, that they're complementary as well. So all of a sudden you have a new way of stacking, which isn't just stacking one direction. It's like multiple spaces being stacked.
I mean, I think even matter will manifest itself that way. According to the holographic universe model, since most matter is empty space, you could fit nearly infinite other universes within the same theoretical three-dimensional space. It's just you just have to look at it from like a different angle, like a holographic sticker.
In terms of like the shape of the universe it's infinite, so it's irrational to begin with, but it seems like reality itself is paradoxical and irrational, while all of the building blocks of it are stable. So like you were bringing up triangles, the reason triangle is important is because triangle is the simplest stable shape. If you're trying to build a structure, you need 3 points, and that's the simplest stable shape there is, the least complex. So triangle is super important. I don't know what else to say beyond that, but
yeah, the
triangle
is the first dimension that contains volume within it.
Right, the lines terminate. A line isn't a shape because it goes on infinitely. So you need 3 points to make it. You need 3 points to make a shape, and if you're going to build a structure in real life, like teepee, it's going to be a teepee, or like
or an igloo.
Bonfire. No, I mean an igloo is probably the most complex because that almost is like the keystone. You know what I mean? It's almost like.
But when you see like, I think that you see more like domes or like round shapes occurring in nature than you do like polygonal ones or like even just pyramidal ones. Like for us to create, yes, to stick stuff together in triangular shapes. It's easy for us to wrap our heads around. It does provide.
Well, what's really interesting about what you're saying is if you take any object and you spin it against friction, it becomes spherical eventually. So it's like everything in motion, so any freestanding object given time is going to be spherical, whether it's a comet, a planet, whatever. I think that's true. I don't know, but it seems like it would be true. But sorry, I just lost my point right there. My bad. Maybe it'll come back.
Well, I was just looking at this article about time as an illusion and it's how it's trying to explain on NPR to like normal people about this idea. But
vibe management is the new time management. You know what I mean? Because you might, like I said before, your time might be better spent feeding squirrels. You could ask an AI and it'll tell you it's impossible to calculate that. That's subjective, which is true.
Your vibe.
But yeah, the vibe is important. The time, people are like your most valuable commodity is your time, economically. But I think really it's peace. You know what I mean? Because if you have perfect peace, it doesn't even matter how you spend your time, and people can outside forces can constrain how your time is spent. They can put you in prison for life, and then you're really limited, But if you're free inside your mind, so I think like peace is actually like a greater commodity than time.
This article is talking about
how we transcend our experience, like how you transcend every experience. Like when you're done being a dog is when you're at peace with it,
This is true.
Maybe.
This article just talks about this idea of like stretching of curvature space-time, that they're explaining that, you know, things bend at a certain point, and that black holes, you know, the idea that space-time is affected because, again, it's radiation affecting light. So light is affecting matter, its order, its symmetry. So everything that we understand about space-time, yeah, it seems like it's connected, but it might only be connected because these are the ingredients that are interacting with each other right here in front of us to make this happen, and those might not be everywhere. And even in terms of subatomic, yeah. Go ahead.
Oh no, it was getting right to it, CERN. I just saw a collider right there. So
yeah, well, the way that they can do these tests is they can make. I like these tests. People get upset. They're like, "Why would you want to do this?" But I think that doing like super high energy, super conductor experiments, it shows you a lot of things. It shows you how particles move and gives you an idea of what happens, you know, without any sort of provocation other than its own natural inclination, what a particle will do. So I think it's pretty useful, but it's gonna probably change what we understand about space-time and Berenstain Bears. Come on.
What type of energies and entities are they attracting with the little sigils that they get by waving their magic wand and having the electrons explode into these fantastical patterns that may or may not represent some sort of demonic sigils, you know?
What do you think? You worried about that?
They open.
Did you become
definitely.
Anytime
you get scientists, hold on. Anytime you get scientists together and they start blowing shit up, they're also worshiping Satan on the side.
Yeah, but you're from LA. You used to not care. What happened to you, man? No, I was kidding.
It's not that I don't care. It's just, you know, you play with magic enough times, you get burned. So
you don't need Cthulhu coming through the center, okay?
Well, how else are you going to control Cthulhu unless you grab Cthulhu and, you know, while it's appearing around a giant redwood tree crucifix that you have going through its spine, and then torture it and say, I'll only let you go if you do what you're told. I mean, how else are you going to deal with Cthulhu? Like, that's the...
And it sounds like what we're doing to AI right now. No?
Speaking of Cthulhu, H.P. Lovecraft did actually believe in extra dimensions. And when Cthulhu appeared, the first guy who saw him, I forgot the name of the protagonist, when he sees Cthulhu, he can see all his extra dimensions, and it like drives him mad looking at it.
Right. Yeah, you can see the different dimensions of himself, reflections of himself in his scale. Pretty intense stuff. Well, but the idea of space-time, I mean, they're already warning you that Jupiter used to be flat, and now they're telling you that space-time isn't real. So I think that's the next thing. If space-time
They said Jupiter might be flat?
Oh, I didn't do that one for you guys yet? I'm sorry. This is what happens when you do like 4 different shows in a week. But this is Jupiter may have been flat at one point, and then Earth may have been flat at one point. These are these like big popular. New Atlas is some kind of normie thing, actually, and then Independent. You guys have heard of that, you know? And stop making those weird like
Jupiter may have been
Carl
flat.
Sagan music.
Are they still saying it's 100% gas? Is it still a gas giant?
I think they're saying it's hot air. No, I'm just kidding. But right here, they've got this picture where it's they're like everything, but really the point is flat space, right? Space is flat. It is flat. They're gonna first say it was a long time ago, but now you're telling me that space-time isn't real, right? So if space-time isn't real, that's twofold. That space isn't real and time isn't real.
No,
that's
isn't. Space-time is a different thing than space and time separately. Space-time is the Einsteinian concept that they are tangential, space and time, that you can manipulating one affects the other.
Space-time on Earth, like, isn't that part of the whole theory of relativity? But then once you're outside of the atmosphere, time changes.
Yeah.
Well, even the idea of space.
They've measured that.
I like it if you type in space, like on wiki, like, and this is space. Like you go to wiki.com/wiki/space. It's not taking you to outer space. It tells you what space is. Space is a 3-dimensional continuum containing positions and directions, right? So it's a mathematical abstraction. So we've really already started doing this where we're dismantling the former narratives and rhetorics about what outer space was and disconnecting them from the concept of space. But space itself, as we understand it, as a 3-dimensional fold, probably isn't accurate. This is probably lesser than, I mean, like we were talking about earlier, fifth dimensional. You can see a fifth dimensional string. That at least we'll probably, because of empirical perception, will be a new way of looking at space, is like 5 dimensions because of choice making and everything in between. So,
but you can see on that graph right there how time dilates around dense objects. It takes less time to navigate between the 1-point coordinates across every axis versus the time that it would take to navigate across like the 4-point coordinates across each axis.
Yeah.
That's
space
like really
is, space is
simplistic.
where stuff is. That's all space is. Space is where things are.
And it affects how we perceive time. Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean to just say that like to sound like totally like stupid, but like people have like this perception of just like the vastness of what is space. Space is where the material is at. You know, material occupies space. So however many dimensions the material has is how many space has. And then if the material is moving, that's a different dimensional axis that we call time. And then there's also the perception connected to it in my model.
Yeah, we're probably going to end up having new understandings of space to replace space, but also time, because time used to be dependent on our star. Now we're talking about Sirius and other stars and their effects, and you know how you might have specific moments where a star is affecting you. Like let's say Sirius isn't always in vision from us, and all of a sudden we're getting radiation from Sirius, and then that's actually affecting us. That could be an effect of space-time, like that idea of space-time as a condition. That might be from stars, and the idea that a star, it's only affecting us for its lifetime. I mean, we have in all of our history, we talk about our ages of Aquarius or Taurus or Leo, because they are connecting. They're saying that this is a time when the destinial energies are connected with these stars. And we've talked about light data, you know, the idea that these stars could be sending data, but they could also be essentially linear accelerators, right? These could be like satellite linear accelerators, because these stars are producing specific radiation patterns and those frequencies, whether they're intentional or not. But it seems like they very well could be, because they're so perfectly symmetrical. These are certain kinds of gases of certain kinds of metals that are expanding. They last like batteries for a long time. I mean, these could be like data energy systems.
Proving astrology correct in some manner.
To some extent, but also just the idea of space-time being affected by the stars. Like the more and more that we recognize that space changes depending on which star is being used to produce the time dilation.
Oh man, I struggle with that all the time about whether or not these anthropomorphized like figures that we mapped out in the sky, whether or not those actual celestial bodies have an effect on us, or if it's just the conditions on the planet at that time that have an effect on us and our behavior and maybe certain traits that we have, like kind of how people who are born around Christmas kind of have like a chip on their shoulder because they have to share their birthday with like Jesus. I'm sure every one of us knows one of those people if they aren't one of those people, you know. So those are the people that tend to celebrate half birthdays. It's like, oh, I'm celebrating my half birthday in June for no reason.
Brilliant. Well, I think also, yeah, there's an epigenetic thing, because let's say you breed expecting, like you believe in the zodiac. So over a period of time, then selective traits start to emerge, because those are the traits you're expecting to have. And even if the stars move, now you have genetic traits that have been developed based on those horoscopes. So that could happen for sure. But I also think that there are legitimate effects from a period of time where everyone's seeing the star, right? Because if these stars are sending data, I mean, it is data. That's what radio is.
No,
so,
yep.
So we have to imagine that that data affects us, because every kind of data seems to, right? And we've been ignoring as much as possible the kind of synthetic data that we produce ourselves, because we just use it to communicate. But obviously this is even impacting us. So what's going on with just like random long-term radio from stars? That has to be a major effect on DNA, because crystalline DNA is changing based on radiation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
I get what you're saying, like super low frequency, like radio waves being sent from stars, and whatever those stars, whatever pitch they're resonating at. I could see how there could be an effect on the DNA. How you're saying, it kind of makes me think about the Chinese zodiac and how it's on a 12-year cycle. I don't know enough about Chinese astrology to have an informed opinion on it, but I'm sure there's something to the 12-year cycle and maybe the Earth's position relative to certain celestial bodies, and how those how the radiation from those bodies are affecting us. We're in Year of the Dragon, baby.
I'm a dragon, but I'm having a bad year so far. But the year doesn't really start till April.
They say that if it's your year, because you're kind of like stealing the thunder of that.
Oh.
Yeah. That it's going to be a tough year on you, but it's like good for other signs.
So don't drop the album this year.
It worked for Cisco. I don't know what to tell you.
Well, that's cool. Now everyone in the chat is going to say theirs. What's your zodiac sign?
I don't even know mine.
Now you do.
Oh yeah, I guess I can look at the screen, hey?
Hey.
So Year of the Snake was this year, so that means that it'll be easier for the snakes in 2024 after April. Is that how that works? Good for snakes in 2024? I hope so.
Not if St. Patrick has anything to do with it.
Never. Yeah. I don't know. I like the idea that time is an illusion, because then we can imagine how we can affect time just by getting out of that radiation. I mean, imagine you're in like a box underground that the star isn't able to, like, you're in a lead line box and you have your own set of radiation. Can you stop time? Is that a way to dilate time?
Are you talking about like the reptilians in Hollow Earth, and that's how they're sort of like navigating through time?
That's an interesting idea. It's an interesting idea. I don't know. I wasn't thinking that too specifically yet, but now I'm there with you. I mean, it makes sense, right? Reptilians underground, but alien ant farm in general. Just the idea that this Earth has a bunch of underground things. So what do you think about that in terms of time dilation?
Right? Like, especially with the hive consciousness aspect, and where exactly does consciousness, what dimension does it exist in? And if it does exist in a higher dimension, potentially that's where these reptilian and insectoid supposed beings could, I guess, be simultaneously existing as well on this plane and others.
They're like projecting themselves into this one from whatever higher dimension they're in. They're casting a shadow.
Or they're just not they're not in material space, maybe.
Yeah, right. So then that would be kind of explain why they're often seen as like ghosts or phantoms or plasmas, not necessarily a solid being or object on our dimension.
Right, but still connected to it through perception. If they're having an experience, they're perceiving it. They are connected to the shape. They're just not within the three-dimensional material realm somehow. But I invented a plane for them to live on, and it's the plane of observation. So I know where they could be.
I mean, it makes sense to be in a star. Like, if you were a super smart civilization, wouldn't you just turn your planet into a star so that it could just like hold all this energy and then use that to like broadcast your signal as radio outwards any direction, and then use that to
shit. Like the bad guy in Fifth Element.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it totally is like that. I mean, like the stars are projecting all the energy, so if consciousness is electrical, that's where it's all coming from. So it's like a projection of matter, and stars are also producing the matter. So it's like a projection of everything, matter, consciousness, time, all coming from the same point.
The transfer of negative ions.
Look up the Necker cube, says Mythoclass. They say it's an optical illusion, but it's actually how we see reality. It's how we perceive it. The Necker cube is an optical illusion that was first published as a rhomboid in 1832 by Swiss crystallographer Louis Albert Necker. Simple wireframe. Oh, right, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Which corner do you see closest to you? That's so funny.
You know,
I'm not sure. Pulled off that illusion better.
You know why I'm not sure it's possible to travel backwards in time?
Why?
Because it seems like if all instances are static, then for some reason the only chess move, or only allowed by the physics of time, if time has physics, just like space does, the only way you can move is in towards dissolution or decomposition. You know what I mean? Like imagine actually walking backwards through time. Yeah, towards entropy. Thank you. Imagine actually walking backwards in time where you're getting older and everything else is getting younger. It seems like the direction of consciousness is towards entropy only.
That could be a great explanation for why everything around us seems to be crumbling, is because those people are traveling and they're bringing all that entropy with them.
Yeah.
And people trying to live forever too, just dragging, creating like a drag towards entropy.
Like a tidal wave of destruction. That's a great explanation for it. Anyway,
especially if everything is coming from a star at once, time, space, consciousness, all the material elements. If all that's coming at once, then it would make sense that it's going all together at the same time. You know, time everything going towards entropy, including your consciousness, or the conscious experience itself, just only going in that direction from creation towards I don't know. I imagine it's cyclical, so it's not like a depressing thing, but I don't know. It's just a new thought I had. Imagine actually moving backwards through time and seeing, I mean, you never see the reverse of entropy, really,
I like the idea, like if you've seen, like what they want to do with Back to the Future 4, or what they did originally when they shot with Crispin Glover, this idea that Crispin Glover's original Back to the Future, he basically destroys his universe. That's the way Crispin Glover looked at it, which is, Eric Stoltz. I'm sorry. Eric Stoltz, because he decided that, I'll never see my family again. I'm going to see a new family. I'll never see my world again. I'm going to a new world. And it's kind of like dark, and he's thinking it's going to be this really kind of beautiful looking thing. It's going to end up in Metropolis, but really it's not ever that he's going to get back to his own world again. And I think that in the process, really what ends up happening is he destroys himself, because he's the product of rape, and now this is the Marty who's the product of the actual father character, which I think,
right. Because you wouldn't be able to retrace your own footsteps to begin with, because memory is imperfect. So if the past doesn't exist, somebody in the chat was just saying, which is another good point to compare this to, you would have a lot of trouble just using your own consciousness to guide you through your own footsteps backwards to arrive in your own, what you guys are calling a timeline, but the same series of instances, as I would call it. You'd almost definitely get it wrong and wind up somewhere radically different. And if you extend that to try and travel to when you have no memories and you're relying upon historical recounting, you might be going to a place that never existed before.
Yeah.
But here's the thing about traveling to where we are
no
now,
consciousness visited before. I mean to say, sorry about that.
No, that would be challenging, but it would seem less and less challenging to travel to this time, because basically anything with a camera or a microphone is recording. Anything that has a Wi-Fi signal can 3D map what's going on. So there is like a digital holographic version of reality right now that is incredibly accurate. And if someone in the future was able to decode that, it would to me, it would be as easy to them as playing an old song on your favorite record.
Or generating a new version of the song with AI. Pretty soon you'll be able to just use a femto printer to print a copy of moments, and you'll be able to
AI might be able to kind of trace energy signatures of no, actually I don't think that would be possible. Never mind. But I was going to say, using AI, you might actually be able to determine going to the past.
Who knows what's happening?
How are you, brother?
Hello. Yeah.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see all of you fellas. Why? Oh, yeah. Andrew's like, I don't know. All right.
All right, anyway.
Andrew, that was the whitest dance I've ever seen you do. No, we're definitely not starting a Filipino boy band if that's how you're going to do the dance moves.
Hey,
Harsh.
man, I know how to dance.
We have plans.
That's just-
I'm just saying. Okay. What's up, Sam? You've seen the world. You've seen people light themselves on fire. You've seen flat Jupiter. You've seen space time turn out to be a lie. What do you see going on out there?
Well, it's like I always say. Well, it's like I always said. Or it's like I always say.
It's like you're going to start saying.
Space is flat. Earth is fake. And JFK was killed by the government. So those are the three facts. Those are the three facts of life. Space is fake. Earth is flat. No. Sorry. Space is flat. Earth is fake. So you can get those mixed up.
Easy.
So you easily
Flat
get those
Mars Society, though.
But yeah, so space is flat, Earth is fake, and JFK was killed by the government. But the whole space is flat. What is it? Space is flat, and we are on an oblate spheroid, as the great what is it?
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
That guy. Yeah, that guy.
Pear-shaped Earth.
Yeah, pear-shaped Earth, oblate spheroid.
It seems so likely because when you spin anything, it becomes spherical. We were talking about that before.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm still trying to connect the dots between the flat space and the fake Earth. I'm trying to still.
It's all electric, man. We're all living in an electric universe.
It's electric.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's hard to conceptualize of a weak vacuum that's also, a perfect vacuum, but somehow it's also weak.
Andrew's saying he's gonna have to take off really soon, but you're saying you gotta, you think it'd be cool to use AI to use human DNA as coordinates to send people back to the general place that person or their ancestors were. Yes, I like that. That's like transfers, right? Like, or quantum leap. Like, using the DNA, you think you could probably remap the conditions based on what DNA was produced to crabification happened because of these conditions. This kind of sequence happened because of those conditions. We can presume that these were basically the conditions. It might not be exactly the same. Might be Berenstein Bears, but it'll be pretty close, right?
Yeah, that's those are my feelings. But feelings aren't facts, so
I like it. All right. Well, I know you got to go, so I'll talk to you soon. But I love you, bro. Peace.
Love you. Have fun, guys.
Ciao.
Later. Good night.
If timelines aren't static, then feelings are facts.
Well, I'm sorry, Sam. You were looking into space-time, and if everything was real, it is electric.
It is electric. I thought the whole mapping of the 3D were kind of the holographic version based off of the microphones and how they have that. And I was thinking about how you could have that mapped out and then be able to see the frequency entities on the different wavelengths.
Totally.
Using certain different, I guess, what we would call meter readers.
I want a plasmoidometer, probably. Plasmoids, bro. This is, Ian always loves plasmoids because they look like they're living things. Where's the picture? Check out that. Look at this. This is a plasmoid. Look at that guy. Looks like a 1970s anime villain. Like the upper guy. The thing at the top.
Exactly?
Natural plasmoid produced in the near-Earth magnetic tail by the magnetic reconnection.
What separates a plasmoid from plasma?
I think a plasmoid is like a density of plasma caused from electromagnetic radiation.
Like a ball lightning?
It's a bigger deal because, again, this is like, imagine that this is supposed to be the Earth, and then I think this is supposed to be the moon. So it's causing a plasmoid to happen around the Earth because of the magnetotail, right? So the push is making electromagnetic.
It's like a tide pool.
Yeah. That's a good way to look at it.
Tide pool.
I think the ocean's another example of things that people don't. Well, people.
But wait, are they saying that's a living thing? What was the point of it?
No one's. Ian is, but he thinks it looks like it's alive. But no, this is just a coherent structure of plasma that. Hey, look, ball lightning right there.
Yeah, well, there you go. Well, plasma definitely. I would say it definitely is alive.
Yeah. Well, but also the ocean, like thinking about currents and Poseidon, and if you ever taunt the sea, and I think there's a lot to be said for current plasmoids having some sort of energy patterns in them naturally. I mean, the way we're talking about how energy could use circuit boards, that then to me says it makes as much sense that energy is looking for whatever it can get its hands on, even rocks or ocean currents.
Do you think a plasmoid like that would form around a triangle?
Not like that, and not in this reality, but like things happen because of the condition sets we have. We have probably, like, was it like 20? I remember reading something like 26 to 56 really essential condition sets that make our physics engine of reality possible. And if those things were flipped in any other way, things wouldn't hold together. Pretty much. I mean, there's probably
where do we draw the line about what's plausible in other realities and what isn't? Because I would posit to you that there is no possible reality that has where circles are square and water is dry. So those seem obvious, but where
I think where water is dry, probably I mean, I think that's a more subtlety. Like, does a fish,
just
see water?
like
it might
square.
be.
There's no
Does a
reality
fish fly?
where a circle
Yeah.
has four corners. There's no reality where a sphere has corners. I'm saying that.
I think a sphere is infinite corners, right?
No, it's not. Infinite corners is infinite quarters. It equals 4, and a sphere is irrational.
No, like 4 would be like a polygon, but like if you have never-ending angles,
that's
never-ending infinite
that's the number
angles.
4. That's mathematically equivalent to 4, whereas a circle is irrational.
I think it's irrational because it's infinite number of angles. Because every point is an angle.
No, it's one angle. It's irrational. It's a concept. It's conceptual.
Yeah, I think though that you could also look at it like it's infinite, like 0 or infinite. So I think there probably are condition sets that could make triangles as relevant as circles in certain.
So then it would be a rational reality.
I think it'd be rational, but that's another thing, is maybe not everything has to be rational. Maybe there's an irrational reality that has divine principles.
Well, our entire, we've reached pretty much like the terminus of like philosophy and logic and things like that. You know what I mean? So we're able to posit, with some confidence at this point that reality itself is paradoxical and the truth of it is beyond scientific inspection. You know what I mean? So if you have a triangle based universe, everything is totally stable and rational. That would be like consciousness would be able to perfectly conceive of everything at once, like a Godhead consciousness.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it doesn't make as much sense as our reality because we live in it, but I feel like also life finds a way. So if everything was going a certain way, then things would probably respond by doing the same thing. So triangles make sense again in crystal. So I don't see why they wouldn't necessarily make sense in, biology. I don't know exactly how that would look or how that would end up, but I think it's possible to imagine.
I think, for biology, totally. For the building blocks of anything, you know what I mean? I think that's totally possible. But for the shape of existence itself, I think it has to be irrational.
Well, even thinking about like subatomic particles, like I think we were talking earlier about quarks, or did he bring up Plancks? Like Plancks are essentially like voxels, and so
do you want to bring up the picture of what you were talking about before, by the way, just so the chat can see the circle of infinite corners? It was kind of like a thing that's been trending.
Circle, infinite corners. Well, that's just the way I learned it in school.
Well, it's been trending recently, though. This was like a thing that everyone was like,
like here, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, I remember reading as a very small child a book about a circle and a square, and they were fighting with each other. And the circle was upset that it didn't have as many corners as the square, and it realized it had like infinite. Or
but maybe but it actually doesn't.
Yeah. But it seems like it does. Because there are any angles.
That's because we could reproduce that, but we can't reproduce creation. We can reproduce that in video games. That's how you make a circle, is infinite corners. It's not irrational. There's no irrational programming. You know what I mean? So this is how we could recreate it, but we can't recreate creation.
At every corner, at every instant, it is a changing angle. I mean, it's a curve is a change at any instant. You can find a curve at any point. So it's.
But in a conceptual perfect circle, there are no infinite tiny corners. It's a perfect line that connects to itself perfectly.
Seems though, if you just continually zoom in forever, then you're going to constantly find further angle. So it just
Totally,
because of
that's the definition of irrational. Just like when you do those, when you yourself make those, like the mandala AI videos. What do you call them? What's it called? When you go into an image and fractals. Like that's what you mean, right? Like fractal.
Yeah. So I mean, fractals are real.
Fractals are real in the sense that the you can produce them like that where you move through them constantly, but fractals are not real in the sense where you can extract yourself outside of the fractal and see what it is. In the same way of reality, you can't supersede it. You can't get your consciousness outside of reality to turn around and look at it. Same thing with fractals. You can zoom in forever, but you can't zoom out.
But you can replicate if you keep zooming out, right? Because you can. No. Interesting.
I've never seen it.
Yeah, it seems like it goes one direction. You can play it in backwards, but yeah, you have to be zooming in. That's right. It makes it difficult if you're trying to do a pull of zoom out with AI because it doesn't work the same. That's interesting. So you have to have something to go into. You can't really use
Same
that.
like we were talking about, like consciousness moving towards. Somebody was saying entropy is not the right word in the chat. They're probably right. There's probably a better word than entropy. Same way, like time travel could be impossible to go backwards. It could be also impossible to describe a fractal or to describe a circle.
It seems like you might only be able to go backwards, although I guess that's counterintuitive since we are going forwards. But it seems like because there is data, you can go back and you can arrange that data. Whereas future is such an abstract concept, it barely exists. It's only whether or not we think it does. So anything can be the future. You can construct anything and it becomes a future.
I think you could go back in the sense that you could somehow cheat and get to a coordinate that is in a year that you recognize as a year prior to where you were, but not necessarily a timeline that directly connects the way you envision it. Like you went step by step back and you arrive in that place. I don't think that's possible. I think it's possible to go to an instance of an earlier year though. Yeah, I think that's possible. But that's not going back in time. That's just going somewhere different. Yeah,
but it could be something that has a similar like plot of time or destinial line that's like the weather from 1997 or something. Yeah. Could see that.
The Clockwork Elves could be what they're doing. They could just be going different places. Like instead of time traveling, they could be basically traveling, from a non-material plane to a material plane and expressing themselves as consciousness as us.
That'd be interesting because we could basically take any moment and then we would go with it. If it was 1997 in Argentina, all of a sudden you have all these Argentinians that are created. All of a sudden, boom, you get these humans that are just, and they have all this backstory because part of the atomic structure included like neurons and memories. So they have backstories that go with it and they're just fully constructed for that moment. Right.
Right. And if reality isn't stable, then it has to, it has to move eternally. I don't even think entropy would be possible because if entropy of creation is possible, then once it stopped moving, you could describe the shape of it, but it doesn't have a shape because it's irrational. So entropy itself and heat death might be impossible.
So symmetry and then density, because density of a moment, the less dense a moment is, the more space, the more things can fit into that moment, the more we can be involved with that moment, perhaps.
Well, yeah, it has to keep expanding, in every possible direction, including into time. You know what I mean? If it's not stable, then it has to constantly be expanding or collapsing. It can't be static. So consciousness maybe can't be static. You know what I mean? Or maybe static consciousness is what we call the machine elves. And they're like, oh, you came out of time to come here where there's no time. Like they might be having experiences outside of time, So that could be a possible other dimension, I guess. I never even thought of that.
Sam is spamming the chat. Felt life. What's up, felt life?
Or they could be living only in time. You know what I mean? They could be purely time entities, time consciousnesses. They could be free electricity not connected to any material form, but in free space.
Stefan has asked for a super chat. Has Sam seen the stand-up special Feltopia? Have you seen that? You know what that is, Sam?
I have not seen that. I have not seen that. What I was looking up was just the recent article here on space.com on time travel. It was from 4 days ago. So obviously this is in the vibration of the zeitgeist. So this is fresh from space.com, I think is what I'm seeing. But yeah, so that just seems to be that space time travel is possible. However, I'm not sure if it's backwards related and only just forward. A lot of stuff here, a lot of science, and I'm sure that I could probably go start digging into a bunch of what are those scientific journals. But I saw an article not too long ago where they were just making up stuff so it could be published in a scientific journal, and then other scientific journals said, hey, that was the correct science. And all of a sudden they came back and said, oh, no, we just made that up to see if anybody else would say it. So I then discredited several different science journals.
Wow.
So you never know what those.
It's crazy.
So that was a pretty interesting story. But that was a couple months back.
Schwarzschild. That's a crazy name.
Can wormholes take us back in time? Sorry, go ahead.
No, what were you saying?
Oh, I was going to read that. Wormholes are theoretical tunnels to the fabric of space-time that could connect different moments or locations in reality.
Dude, they got the Einhorn-Finkelstein metric. Einhorn is Finkelstein. Did you read down to the 5th paragraph?
No, where's this at?
It doesn't actually say Einhorn-Finkelstein. It's the Eddington-Finkelstein metric. Einhorn is Finkelstein.
Eddington-Finkelstein metric. Oh, my God. Well, I've been thinking about that because of Blade Runner. Because in Blade Runner, like, everyone loves Blade Runner. It's a beautiful movie. And that's the girl in Blade Runner who finds out she's a robot. And, she's like going to die for him. And she's like pretty cute looking and everything in that movie. But, dude, that's Einhorn in Ace Ventura.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The girl from Blade Runner is Ray Finkel. Dude.
Whoa.
Yeah, it's her, dude. It's straight up her. It's the same girl
crazy.
from Blade Runner, and no one ever thinks about that. But like, so can you imagine, like, because he's going home? I feel like David Plate should do like a sync between the two movies of Blade Runner and Ace Ventura, because basically he's aware now that he's caught feelings for someone who's not a woman, and that's exactly what happens in Ace Ventura. It's the exact same. I can't believe that that's this plot. It blows my mind. I don't know. I can't believe that movie hasn't been canceled yet for being. Hey, what's up? Bernie's here. What's up, man?
What about the Crying Game? Then they have to cancel that, but they like that one.
Don't cancel the Crying Game unless Northern Ireland really loses once and for all. Don't cancel the Crying Game, bro.
We left the theater. We only went to see it because they told us there was a big surprise. You got to see this movie. This movie's got a secret surprise. Wow. They kept that secret surprise. That's impressive. We went to see that movie as soon as the dick came out. We were like, we're out of here, man.
Wait, was it your parents who took you? Well, who's we?
No, me and my friends, some high school friends.
Oh, okay.
Got drunk, went to the theater.
That was the big secret, huh?
That was the big surprise, and they made you wait like a good halfway through the movie. We were like, "Come on, bro! What? This movie sucked up to that point where we didn't care about any IRA terrorists. We were high school kids."
That's fair.
We're gonna get an action movie at the big surprise. I thought it was gonna be aliens or something magical.
Stefan says, compare and contrast Salvador versus Argentina banking. I mean, they're really different, right? Like El Salvador is, Bukele is doing crypto, and he's pretty much mainstream philosopher king, but trying to see like machismo is a really important look in South America, and people don't get that in the North. They're like, oh man, all these dictators in South America that are so machismo, like that's the only way to be elected. So Bukele has to act machismo, but he's not that machismo, I think, and so that's a whole different thing.
Didn't he throw like 40,000 people into prison camps without trials? That's pretty.
50,000, and he built it. It's not just a camp; it's a city. It's a city prison. It's a giant,
huge stadium.
Yeah,
it looks like a coliseum actually.
Prison up, crime down. There's
conservatives are like, this guy's so based.
Like, everybody likes him. The hippies like him because like there's no more crime in El Salvador now. I mean, basically they walked through El Salvador picking up anybody, made them take off their t-shirts, saw tattoos of skulls, arrested them. Yep. That was it.
And everyone with them.
Yeah, and for the most part, but yeah,
roommates, family members. I mean, this is like a serious human rights violation of historical proportions, and everyone's cheering it on. I got personal friends who are doing videos about how we need to do this in our country. I'm like, with no trials, bro. Like they're gonna do it. It's called January 6th, but it's for you.
Yeah. I think it's not quite as bad as it sounds. Like in El Salvador, it's not like they're just arresting.
Plus, by the way, by the time he
mothers.
did this, 1/3 of El Salvadorians are already living in America. They lost 1/3 of their citizenship, and now they're locking huge swaths of them in prison. This is not, this is not charting well,
Well, a large amount of the El Salvadors living in America were brought, except for the ones who were trying to escape violence, were involved with the American military, gang cartel programs. So that was a major reason he wanted to stop the cartels, was because like they were organized by our CIA a lot of the time. And sure, they're arresting some families, but for the most part, they're not just like taking away people's mothers, unless it's like somebody's obviously like a kingpin in the town who's running like the bakery, and he's got like 13 underpinners that are selling heroin or something like that. But they can tell because a lot of the people were so proud of who they were covering themselves with tattoos of skulls in their faces and everything like that. So it was like, look, we're just not going to allow that kind of culture anymore. And yeah, it seemed like really intense and extreme. But, the thing I haven't seen is what the plans are for rehabilitation, because it's been a few years now, and there's going to be a bunch of people that are going to grow up the rest of their lives. And, I mean, these are kids that are like 25 or something like that are in this prison. So either they're planning on isolating them for the rest of their lives, and then this is where like they're going to have drugs in their prison still, or they're really working on like a cleanup plan in El Salvador. And El Salvador's a really disciplined country.
And it never works, man. Eventually you end up killing them. Eventually you're like, we have nothing to do with these people but kill them. And they always kill them.
Yeah.
That's not true. In America, we had prison camps to let people out, right? But
yeah, I think like you can use prisons. Like they want, he could probably convert soldiers, to El Salvador's side over a period of the next 5 years. I mean, Bukele's becoming a very powerful figure.
I understand both sides of it totally. I understand the desire to, I mean,
people love that there's no more like people aren't getting decapitated anymore. People aren't getting like burned alive. El Salvador used to be a very
same with like
country.
Dubai and Saudi Arabia and a whole bunch of places that we don't want to emulate, for the exact same reason, because people aren't treated as individuals and they don't get individual rights.
True. Yeah, there's a lot of discipline going on. But again, like watch videos of El Salvador from 10, 15 years ago, and then watch videos of today. And there's just people walking around playing guitar. Now, I'm not just talking about like propaganda films. I'm saying like watch YouTube videos from people that are like hanging out and just visiting countries, and see how the climate has changed. And it does seem like sometimes you need a little bit of control over your state to keep out like organized crime.
Let's just imagine the exact same thing happening in America. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be Trump. It could be anyone doing
Crips and Bloods, or who are the
Crips and Bloods, or anyone who was raised on gangster rap or CIA crack cities and all that. So because it's our country, we understand the history of the generational trauma that has been inflicted upon these people for power and monetary gain. So we have sympathy for them, and hopefully when we see people sagging their pants and stuff like that, we understand that it's because somebody left them no alternative, and they're like, you left me alive, but you left me no hope. So now my whole life is about F you. I'm going to listen to the music you hate. I'm going to dress the way you hate. You just tell me what you hate. That's what my life is going to be all about, because I've got nothing else, no other way to express myself, no other way to communicate with you, the people who I feel are oppressing me. So when we think about that with Americans and imagining taking all those people and throwing them into camps because they have become a blight on society, but they didn't get there on their own. So the people actually responsible for it are free. Why aren't they going to destroy their society again? Because right now they've had a year and people are walking around playing guitars at City Hall. Like, how is this going to work out in the future when all the people who cause these conditions are still free and prosperous?
Yeah.
Can't just take a generation of youth that you messed up and put them and sweep them under the rug. I mean, you can, we'll see what happens. I just don't have, I don't predict good things.
You can't do it without massive human rights violations, like you said.
Way too simple.
I feel like he would have loved it.
Even though he hated everything else.
Right?
My people, bro. I grew up in Manhattan. I know these people. I know the Seinfelds, the Larry Davids. I know like
Yeah, right.
neuroticism.
Oh man, Richard Lewis, we're gonna miss
I was
you.
always more of a Stephen Wright guy. I feel like you had to like come
Oh,
down
yeah.
on one or two.
Stephen Wright was cool, yeah. I like Stephen Wright.
You have to send that to me so I can play it on the radio this Saturday.
Oh, I definitely will.
You know, it's interesting because I was sitting there. Usually what happens is that when somebody important dies, I do a whole segment where I do a tribute to them during that segment. And of course, I had on the docket to do Lord Jacob Rothschild, and talk about the Rothschilds musical. But now I want to just talk about Richard Lewis. So, and I want to play that song. So,
it's a beautiful.
when the hell are you going to come back on the show? Oh,
We're gonna
that's
make
right.
it happen.
That's right. You never came to the first.
I'm gonna
time.
do it. I'm gonna do it in the morning. I'm
You
gonna do it in the
slept.
morning this time. I'm gonna be awake. This is gonna be incredible. I'm gonna be there in the morning on WDCE 90.1 on the University of Richmond radio. You'll be able to hear me with Sam Newsman himself. It's gonna be great. It'll happen. It's gonna be gret.
It will happen.
Yeah,
It will happen. And you know, I have played some of VBDC. I've played some of your songs on the
Thank you,
radio as
buddy.
well.
I appreciate
Oh
you.
yeah, absolutely,
Appreciate you, man.
absolutely.
Get a new one coming out this Friday. I would appreciate everyone to pre-order it.
Yeah. Let me pull up the link to that. Actually, we're pretty much at the end here. I'll
Awesome.
Let me show where you guys.
Yeah,
can
everyone
get
in the
new
chat who
songs.
wasn't here before when I was begging and pleading, I beg and plead you to go take a minute and 99 cents and give me some dopamine so I can hit the iTunes charts with the pre-orders.
Everybody pop onto songlink song.link/I/1732775753. You can't forget it.
Spell it right.
Yeah. Song.link/I/1732775753. Those numbers are cursed, but they'll probably make you win the lottery. If you go here, you'll be able to.
Just so everyone knows the mechanics of it, when the song goes live, all the pre-orders hit at once, and that gives you like 1 minute at number one on iTunes to get like a screen capture of it, and then you're like number one single.
There you go.
That's the
So
mechanic.
the goal here. Let's get this. Let's get
Nice.
this number one. Everybody, let's hijack.
And then
iTunes.
Bob Marley and Shaggy take it back 10 minutes later, but that's fine.
Yeah, yeah. We can have that. But if you
Yeah,
get number
for sure.
one, that'd be good. So everybody, let's do this
That's
solid.
my whole plug. You don't have to plug anything else for me.
Well, you know, make sure you guys check it out. Just go to the song link and
Yeah, just
I put
that.
the song
Don't even
link
pull
right
up my
there.
other stuff. I don't want to complicate the matter. Just do that.
All right, everybody, go here. Just do this. Everybody, do this. Pre-order this new
Thank
music video. It's gonna change the world. And then, yes, Sam Newsman. You know he's got that radio show, so you'll want to be listening to that. He's
Play that on the. I'll play it on the radio on Saturday morning.
sweet.
So it'll be super fresh, freshy fresh.
That's beautiful, man. I can't believe Richard Lewis is dead, but you know what? He lives on in song and in our hearts and in our spirits. So that's pretty cool. I like it. Bernie disappeared. Bernie. I was just about to give you a little plug there, Bernie. Gonna give you a little.
You can still plug.
Also plug Bernie. Oh, Bernie, Crypto Alchemist. Everybody check out burncron.com. This is his new Burncron link. Oh,
Oh wait,
that's what you get for trying. But you know what? Also check out his new live streams. Go click on Bernie. Give Bernie some love. He's a good man. And yeah, make sure you guys are in the Targeting Nova Discord, because the Targeting Nova Discord's got a lot of cool things going on. Lots of people are conversing. I don't plug it nearly enough, but I'm trying to, because the people who are on it are just all the time talking all the time. There's all kinds of cool things. So I feel like Xirtus never sleeps at the Discord. So get yourself over there through targetingnova.com. Buy some merch. But yeah, more importantly, make sure you support Venice Beach Dub Club, because it would mean a lot to me, and I'm sure it would mean a lot to him.
I
And
need the
think Sam would be happy.
dopamine.
Yeah, it's gonna be rad, dude. It's gonna be rad. We're all gonna be there.
Dopamine. Yeah, everyone enjoy the music video. It drops Friday too. So I enjoyed today's Wednesday Ultra. We talked about a lot of stuff that is proprietary and no one else is talking about, and new ideas and pushing things forward. So that's what I'm in it for, and podcasting
Yeah, right.
for. So I had fun.
Dude. Yeah. And Sam looks good. Look at Sam. He's all blushed, but
Sam, you got here late, bro. You got to come in early and give us puppet sacred geometry lessons.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, listen,
Puppet dimension.
some of those lessons are held behind NDAs.
Did you ever? Do you think there's some other dimension where we're made of felt and you're made of skin?
That's a nightmare. That would be like a total nightmare.
You've got pores and grease and all kinds of crap coming at you.
That would be awful. Yeah, it would be like a black man waking up becoming white. Terrible.
Yeah.
Don't want that to happen at all.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Good night.